Welcome everybody. My name is Neil with Portal to Ascension. Thank you all so much for being with us and spending your Saturday with us today. We have an amazing presentation, and if you guys do not know who I am or what Portal to Ascension is, we are a conscious platform. We're basically an event production organization for conscious events and presentations. We do webinars, retreats, tours. We have our live conference coming up in 12 days in Irvine, California. But what we've really cultivated is this online university platform where we basically have every single week a different, around three presenters every single month on a different topic every single Saturday on everything from ancient civilizations to self-empowerment, sound and vibration frequency, consciousness, UFO disclosure. So we've become a one-stop shop for the conscious awakening. And through that, we work with many different individuals that are doing that in their own way. So we're a platform for them to be able to get out their message and their information as well. So today we have a beautiful presentation by Lori Spagna. And Lori and I only got, I think it's been actually a year now, we got acquainted fairly recently. And we connected last year at Conscious Life Expo. And the amount of information and wisdom that she shares, different types of presentations that she has is really, really inspiring. So what we're going to be doing over the next year or two, we actually have a presentation with her every 3 months, and leading up till we have the next year's worth of presentations already booked, but we're definitely going to be continuing with more in the future. So a little bit about Lori. Lori Spagna is a best-selling author, speaker, spiritual teacher, ascension guide, multidimensional channel, intuitive, animal communicator, energy healer, light worker, visionary, and luminary who assists others to awaken to their enlightenment with the true divine source, which exists within each and every being so that all beings can live their best life ever. She radically transformed her life after a series of near-death experiences and an induction-abduction experience while living in Maui. She's a best-selling author of books such as How Psychic Are You? 7 Steps to Unlocking Your Psychic Potential. And for over 20 years, Lori has transformed the lives of thousands of humans and animals around the world via her channeled ascension guide, intuition, sacred energy healing, and animal communication and telepathy. She offers seminars and workshops about how we can improve our lives by learning from animals and aligning with our true divine source and the fifth dimensional reality and beyond. So today, her presentation is on benevolent extraterrestrials, and also from my understanding, more of a dimensional awareness of these different beings and the kind of messages you can get from other dimensions, which is truly amazing, and especially the conversation about the benevolent extraterrestrials and who these beings are and what they represent. So let's go ahead and bring you on, Lori. Are you here with us?
I'm here. Hi.
Hey.
Thanks for having me.
For sure. Welcome.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited about sharing today. So thank you so much for inviting me and for this connection.
You're very welcome. Go ahead and take it away.
All right. So, well, hello everybody, and it's so wonderful to see everybody on there. So, all right. Well, here's what we're going to go over. Yes, we're going to talk about benevolent ETs, but I'm also going to share a lot about exiting the matrix and shifting out of, third dimension into fifth dimension and really anchoring in there, because that's a huge part about what I share. So, and then what we'll do also is we will also, sorry, I just got a little distracted. We will also take questions at the end. So like the last half an hour, about an hour and a half into it, we'll take questions. So if you have questions, store those up and we can address them. And I love to say that I'm really, like, nothing's off limits. So, because a lot of times, even if I can't get the answer, if I don't know the answer, I can, channel it in. Most of what I offer is mostly really channeled, even though it sounds like me talking. So let's get started. And I'm going to start with more talking about just exiting the matrix, the third dimensional paradigm that we've been living in, and the fifth dimensional paradigm that we're all shifting and up-leveling and anchoring into. And then what's beyond that? And then we'll bring in the whole extraterrestrial, benevolent star family races thing. We'll work that into it as well. So first of all, and I also want to say, because I know that for Neil's community, you guys are very used to this content and exposed to it a lot. And I know for my community, I'm always sharing about this stuff. So some of it may add to what you already know, and other aspects may be brand new. So just let's have an open mind, and let's ask and know that what needs to be said will be said, and what needs to be heard will be heard, and what needs to be healed or resolved in our own consciousness will be as a result of this connection we have here, serving the highest and best of all beings concerned and with harm to none. And that's kind of my ongoing intention for everything I do these days, practically everything. All right, so let's first get clarity on understanding this third dimensional reality that we've all been existing in and living in and functioning from, right? So basically we've been existing in this third dimensional reality, which is physical, a physical reality. And when I refer to third dimensional reality, everything that my consciousness has and shares about it is that the three dimensions from a consciousness point of view exist as space, and space actually exists as height, width, and depth, right? That's a dimension of reality, space. And in that space, we could include that concept of time, because time is space, but time itself is not a dimension. In fact, it's a construct of consciousness. So we'll come to time later, but just for your known, because that's the first thing everybody always thinks time is a dimension, and in my perspective, it is not. So space. Then when we talk about a second dimension, well, think of what you're hearing, sound. We can hear, and there is auditory in our physical experience. So that's a dimension, sound. And sometimes in the Bible it said first is the word, not to quote Bible stuff, but don't we hear that first was the word? Well, that's sound. So that's a dimension of reality. And then light, right? All colors are gradients of light, white, black, and everything in between in the spectrum, the rainbow spectrum, the colors of light. That is a dimension because we can see light and we can see gradients of color and light. That's third dimensional reality. And this is where the bulk of humanity is living. And this is, when I refer to the matrix, I will be speaking about, I'll get more into that later, but what is encompassed within the third dimensional reality. And understand that that's what we're breaking free from, that limited perspective. That's all that is, because people who are still really heavily rooted into third dimensional reality are coming from this belief system that that's all there is. And they, from their perspective, are perceiving that there's nothing real beyond their physical reality. Now, if you're on this call in these communities, of course, your consciousness is already shifted into 4D, which I'll get to later. But let's just use that as our agreement for, at least for today, that's basically what 3D is. And it's based on separation, right? Because in the third dimensional reality, I'm separate from you, you're separate from me. The United States is separate from Russia. Russia's separate from Japan. Earth is separate from the sun. And everything else is, everything's separate. We're separate from God, so to speak. You know, we have to pray to this God that's some kind of Santa Claus in the sky outside of us. And, you know, even most of our religion, most organized religion in a sense is primarily teaching us this kind of separateness. Even the idea that you're connected to God because you can pray to this God, but this God is only Jesus or Buddha or something outside of us. That's all 3D consciousness. And there is a predominant vibration of 3D, even though we would never call that the predominant vibration, because in 3D we don't pay attention to vibration. But let's just think of it this way. The primary controlling force in 3D is fear, right? And that is the vibration. There's a vibration to fear. And this fear frequency, it's an energetic frequency that basically is dense and heavy, right? So when we're talking about fear, it's all vibrations associated with fear in the third dimensional reality. It's like worry, doubt, anxiety, frustration, concern, guilt, grief, regret, remorse. And all of these kinds of energies feel really heavy, right? They're just so heavy and dense that they weigh us down in this heaviness of this third dimensional reality, right? And from those energy frequencies, you know, if you're feeling fear or anxiety or worry, it's pretty tough to suddenly feel joy and happiness and elation, right? Okay, but that's just for our understanding of 3D. A couple other things about 3D. It's important also to understand that in third dimensional reality, we as a human species existing in 3D have been operating primarily from our left brain. And our left brain is analytical, it's logical, it likes the 1, 2, 3 steps to everything, it wants everything ordered, it tends to be very focused on memory. So for example, our schooling system is based almost entirely on memorization, and then you get tested on what you can memorize. Maybe it's not entirely, but largely. We have this linear approach to everything we do. Our entire calendar system, our dates and calendar systems are linear. Even in our learning, like I referenced, we like 3 steps to unlock your greatest gifts, that kind of thing. And the other part about this third dimensional linearity, as many of us are aware, is we function in a very hierarchical point of view, right? Like there's a president and he's supposedly the leader of the world, and then he's got this, these groups that filter off like this multi-level marketing corporation, right? Everything's, even in your businesses, you've got a CEO and everything filters down from there in this hierarchical approach. Even in our queen, king environment, all of our structures are based on that hierarchical approach. And we, of course, have schooling systems that are like that with principles and, on and on and on. Family, the father's the patriarch of the family. It's all this hierarchical approach. And we believe and buy into these approaches that they're true and real when we're in this third dimensional reality. Another good example is even in the world of entertainment. The more famous you are, you're higher up on that hierarchy, or the richer you are. Everything's built in that way, right? In third dimensional reality. So I'm going to explain this matrix a little better from the perspective of where I'm coming from. So this matrix is an energetic container for the third dimensional reality. And when we refer to the matrix, we're referring to this frequency bandwidth that's fear-based, but we're also referring to a kind of pseudo-psychological grid of entrapment that we get entrapped in the third dimensional matrix, this third dimensional reality. It's psychological in the way that we believe and perceive reality to be. Because of course, if you walk up to a really deeply embedded third dimensional person, let's say, for example, someone who's a complete atheist, and you say, oh yeah, I'm speaking to angels, they think you're whacked. They can't perceive that. And even if they do, they have a judgment and a perspective of who you are because you believe you're speaking to angels. And even if you translate it for them, like, well, angels are actually, according to science, just electromagnetic particles of light with innate intelligence, then maybe they can wrap their brain around, because now you've just put it into a construct of what their psychological profile will allow. Oh, electromagnetic particles of light with innate intelligence, angels. Maybe they'll wrap their brain around that if they choose, but maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just block it out. And that will be likely because of something in their consciousness, right? So this is what I mean by a pseudo-psychological grid, because it's based on what any individual can perceive and allow into their consciousness. But the matrix is also even more than that, because up until 2012, the matrix was basically also a literal energetic grid, so to speak, of a containment that, in a sense, was keeping us separated from these higher dimensional realms that we'll be discussing today, and other benevolent alien extraterrestrial star family races, which we'll also be discussing today. So this energetic container, which was in a sense like a quarantine, that entrapped everyone in this third dimensional reality. So that energetic grid, so to speak, has quarantined humanity. And to the extent that you're psychologically manipulated and vibrating with fear, which is this kind of vibration, right? That's what it feels like, really. Stress, anxiety, all that energy. You're entrapped. I'm saying you, but I mean all of us within this matrix. I will say one other thing just as an adjunct, that when we refer to the matrix, we're also largely referring to, I mean, even if you look at the 5G grid, that is an attempt to maintain the matrix. That is an attempt to maintain the old matrix and to further entrap people in sort of this dense physical realm. So, yeah, I'll leave that there because I know that we're going to go on with this. So that's what I'm talking about when I refer to this matrix and this idea of separation and this kind of quarantine that we've been in that encompasses third dimensional reality. And, you know, we can talk about 2012 as well if people want to really ask more about what happened. But the truth is that in 2012, humanity was effectively liberated from this matrix. But it's still up to us to break free of this pseudo-psychological kind of entrapment in a way. And even if you don't think of it as entrapment, it's this grid network of our own psychological consciousness and our own energetic frequency that's fear-based. All right, so let me talk a little bit more about duality and separation. So duality and separation are really great ways to explain third dimension in terms of spiritual terms or fifth dimensional terms. Duality and separation, as I've mentioned, essentially mean that we're all separate and nothing's connected. No one's connected to anyone else, and nothing's connected to anything else. And in third dimensional reality, we believe that, right? When you're in that reality, if you tell a woman that the fact that she's resentful about her daddy, that's part of why she can't maybe meet her man, she might not see that connection in third dimensional reality. She might not realize that there's a connection to what she's feeling in this reality and in this lifetime to another lifetime, because she might not even believe that there are other lifetimes, for example, because she's separate from that in this example. So this separation that exists in third dimensional reality is a perpetuating part of the entrapment. And it's a perpetuating part of what keeps us anchored into 3D. And part of the liberation from 3D is the recognition that that's not really true. So, you know, including those aspects of that there's this patriarchy and that our government systems are controlling us and that they're sort of dominating everything in this hierarchical approach, and that we're somehow separate from source, creator, God. That's all of that separation, right? So in order to shift out of 3D and into 5D, that's really where we're going, right? We have to first become very clearly aware, and in this group, everybody knows this, that everything is energy, that there's nothing that's not energy, and that every energy, all energy, vibrates to a speed, and the speed of that vibration is the frequency of the energy. And so, as we've touched on already, the frequency of an energy, if it vibrates very dense or heavy or dross, that's going to be fear-based. And again, those energies of fear-based, stress, anxiety, worry, frustration, judgment, anger, resentment, these are not bad things. They just have to be identified from a new perspective. Because if we're vibrating from them, if we're experiencing them, we're in a kind of density, right? And that density weighs us down and serves to further entrap us in this 3D reality. And of course, it's been the primary tool of those in the third dimensional reality who basically have kind of controlled it, right? I mean, the ones who have been in control of this reality, whether we call them the patriarchal structures or whether we refer to them as malevolent aliens, negative aliens, reptilians, draconians, greys, gray hybrids, mantids, whatever, however we label whoever has been sort of maintaining the old third dimensional reality, we see them as someone separate from us from that perspective. And we know it's heavy and dense and fear-based, right? A slow moving vibration of energy. Now, in contrast, lighter vibrations, right, are going to vibrate with more speed, but not like neurotic speed, but just flow, more effortless flow, and lightness of light, of actual light, lightness of color, lightness of frequency. And those things are going to vibrate more in harmony with things like happiness, love, joy, peace, fulfillment, inspiration, kindness, compassion, forgiveness, understanding, health, well-being, and of course, abundance, prosperity, wealth, and all of these things that are generally more desirable to us. Generally, we desire those things more. So if we're carrying energies of like depression, anxiety, frustration, illness, disease, lack, poverty, limitation, any form of lack, whether it's lack of love, lack of time, lack of money, whatever it is, if we're engaging in lies, deception, manipulation, if we're out of alignment with our integrity, if we're cruel, or these kinds of energies, these heavy energies, again, will limit us. And the polarization energies that are the more light ones, those lighter vibrations, are part of what set us free. It's very important to get this, because that's the whole idea of, why people now are so kind of consumed with this. I want to raise my vibration. Well, you want to raise your vibration because this concept of raising your vibration is really what's elevating you out of 3D. Even if people don't know that's what they're doing, in their mind, they're thinking, well, if I raise my vibration, I'll be happier. If I raise my vibration, I'll have more health. If I raise my vibration, I'll feel more peaceful, or I'll be able to make more money or have more success. That's kind of like an egoic reason for raising our vibration. But nonetheless, it is true and real that as we elevate our vibration, that very vibration is elevating us out of this third dimensional matrix. It's part of what it is, a huge part. So, okay, I hope this is making sense so far. So I want to just say something, by the way, on this topic area. We're going to go into raising the vibration and tools of that, because that's part of this. But to really understand that, because so many of my community is animal lovers, and I know that's one of the classes we're going to be doing is about like animal communication, telepathy, and energy with our animals. But understand that if we're in a dense vibration, if we're carrying illness or disease or suffering in our body or our experience, poverty, lack, limitation, whether it's limitation of time, love, money, whatever it is, our animals are going to feel that too, because they're sharing their space with us and they are connected to us. So they're going to sort of absorb it. I always say animals are the ultimate empaths. They're going to absorb it and they're going to demonstrate that in some way. So again, raising our vibration not only helps us, but it actually helps the people and animals that we share our physical environment with. That's a great demonstration, right? Because the animals get healthier and well as we do. And if we're carrying something heavy and dense, that's going to affect them. Okay, so let's talk about raising our vibration. And yes, this includes our animals too. So, okay, I think I just said this in a sense. For the average person who's conscious of raising our vibration, they're thinking, oh, I'll be happier, I'll be healthier, I'll be more fulfilled. I'll have more materialistic possessions. I'll find my soulmate or my twin flame or my divine complement. I'll I'll fall in love with a partner, or I'll be able to get along with my spouse better. I'll live a better life, you know, whatever that means to any individual. And a lot of times the initial stages of wanting to raise our vibration is a little more of like, I'll just have a little more ego attachment. I'll have a little more of those things that my personality, human self wants. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. And if that's the initial, like, you know, in the law of attraction movement, that's very common. You know, it's like, if I feel happier, I'll have a better life. And that's true. And that is wonderful, because we will. I mean, I always say, if you're not happy, you're not helping, because your happiness is a great contribution energetically, vibrationally. And then what happens as we do that really is, in terms of raising our vibration, staying on that whole topic area, is that as we do that, we become more fine-tuned slowly, and sometimes quickly, to this love, this inner peace, this inner joy, this inner happiness, this inner fulfillment, this inner source, the source within us. And as we become more fine-tuned to this, through this process of raising our vibration, we also start to notice a dramatic reduction, and ultimately we want an elimination, basically, of pain and suffering on a personal level, right? And yes, also for our loved ones, including our animals. So you start to realize, oh, this actually helps me reduce the pain and suffering, in addition to me having like the nice car or whatever, all the dreams fulfilled. And that becomes a motivator, like a reduction of pain and suffering. And then as we do, we're realizing through that process, we're actually able to anchor into this fifth dimensional reality, because we become more conscious. You're here now because of the work, the inner work that you've already done to get yourself to a point where you'd be willing to hear such a presentation like this. So your vibrational shifting, you know, is allowing you to really anchor more fully into 5D, which is what's going on here, right? And as we anchor more fully into this new fifth dimensional reality, that's, I'm going to even talk about even more, this fifth dimensional reality starts to open up and reveal to us even more of our gifts, of our true gifts within us, our spiritual gifts, talents, and abilities, our own inner psychic, intuitive healer. We're all healers. Our own inner abilities to communicate telepathically, whether it's with an animal, a plant, Mother Earth, or star family races. That's within all of us. And also, more of the gifts of what we have, our own inner guidance comes through with a lot more clarity. This is all because we're raising our vibration, right? We're dropping off density and we're elevating into these higher frequencies of love and peace, etc. And then as that happens, we dramatically increase our inner knowing, our guidance. And then what happens is we start to realize we have incredible gifts to really solve the problems of the world. We stop thinking like from that perspective of what's going to happen to the world, and we realize I'm the solution. I have solutions. I have incredible solutions, right? That's the start of, as we're raising our vibration. This is like one of the greatest things, because you're like, oh my God, I have so many things to share. You always know somebody who's really starting to anchor into 5D because they start operating from this perspective like, I have so much to share. I have so much to offer. I have these great gifts, and you know that they're not really yours. They're the divine, the gifts of the divine that come as a result of raising your vibration. And the gifts can be the humans, plants, minerals, animals, all of humanity, and really beyond even our comprehension. And ultimately, as we come into raising this vibration, our vibrational frequency, and aligning more wholly and completely with love and peace and other concepts that we'll talk about some more, we come into oneness. Well, first unity consciousness where we're all knowing that we're all connected, but oneness with our source, the source within us, that we are the source. We are the embodiment of the source. So we'll get into that some more, but let's talk first about basics that many of you know, but just to expand on it for foundation of how to raise our vibration. Because from my perspective, in order to really connect with your benevolent star family races, which is where we're going with this call, you have to be at a higher frequency. If you're trapped in third dimensional frequency, the star family races that you get to connect with are reptilian. They're draconian. And you won't know that you're really connecting with them, because in third dimensional reality, nobody knows that the reptilians are, you know, at the highest levels of the Roman Catholic Church, or at the highest levels of their own government, or the secret societies that they don't even know who they are, or that they're existing in some being who's claiming to move people to the planet Mars and build spaceships, when actually what he's doing is recruiting other reptilian beings to live on another planet. All right, I know I'm throwing in a lot of loops here. I do that. But the point is that if you're not raising your vibration, you're interacting with those who are at that vibrational frequency. And if your goal, if part of what you want is to know and learn more about how to connect with your own star family races and other star family beings who are benevolent, and other aspects of your own consciousness beyond 5D, raising your vibration is a requirement, right? We can understand. So what are some of the basic ones? A lot of you guys know this. Basic meditation is a great start. Breath work and deep breathing, pranic work, pranic breathing, spending time in nature, being barefoot on the earth as much as possible or whenever possible. In fact, we know scientifically that 5 minutes barefoot on the earth, the blood under the microscope shows a dramatic and noticeable and dramatic difference. It's healthier blood after only 5 minutes barefoot on the earth. And that's sand, dirt, grass, yeah? Not like gravel. I mean, not like a tar pavement thing. But nonetheless, okay, quiet and peaceful reflection. So we know that all of our technology is a 3D frequency, and it messes with our field, right, of energy and our embodiment. So we need a lot of quiet, peaceful, unplugged time, unplugged from technology. Journaling is a great way because we're expressing ourselves. Body work and body massage. The body, the physical body, really wants to be touched and soothed and nurtured. Any form of soothing, soothing yourself, soothing another, is really a great way to raise your vibration. Even, of course, that's why being with animals, loving on animals, always raises our vibration, brings in the energy of love and peace. Any kind of energy healing, any modality that you love that works for you, whether you use it as a healer yourself or whether, and you're using it with someone, you're giving healing, you're raising your vibration. You're receiving healing, you're raising your vibration. So whatever modality it is, I know my very first official modality was Reiki. And now I use like a gazillion modalities, and I wouldn't even say I have one modality or any particular modality anymore, but it's always just source with, you know, working through me. But any modality you love. Healthy eating, of course, is huge right now because we understand that the foods that we take into our bodies are majorly affecting our vibration. And this is like genetically modified foods are basically shutting down the DNA. That's what they're working to do. They're shutting down pineal gland and pituitary gland, which are master glands, also known as third eye, right? So the food that we eat has to be all natural and of the earth, and ideally organic. And I'm going to put something out because this tribe is willing to be conscious. I might push some buttons with what I'm about to say, but when we eat death of another living being, we accelerate death in our bodies. And I personally believe, from all of my consciousness expansion now, that eating dead animals is, I'm asking if I should go on this detour, I'm going to say it, is reptilian programming operating in us. And to the degree that we don't have to reject our reptilian self, but that's not the natural human original blueprint. I'll get into this some more too. So stay with me. I get it. That's a button pusher for some people. But eating all natural, ideally organic foods non-genetically modified, and nothing artificial. If you read it on a label and it doesn't grow on a tree from Mother Earth, it should not be in the body, more or less. Okay, detoxifying the body, cleanses, and those cleanses, I'm talking physical, yes, physical cleanses with all natural supplements, organic juices, water cleanses, breath cleanses, breatharianism, if you're familiar with that, sun gazing, if you're familiar with that. These are all forms of cleansing the body, but also emotional cleanses, mental cleanses. I will say, before I started the call and I was just chatting with Neil, I was saying, oh, my second Reiki master. I redid all my Reiki after I got back from living in Hawaii for 2 years, because I wanted a new cleanse. Like, Reiki is an awesome way to cleanse the system energetically. Okay, obviously I could go on about that, but healthy water, which means eliminating all unhealthy water, and that includes eliminating fluoride in the water. So get yourself the best filters, filtration processes, and you might want to investigate using crystals in water. You have to learn from someone who really knows how to do that. But whatever the healthiest water is, blessing your water, learning about that, that's a way to raise your vibration, because we know we're water, we're made up of water, and the water nourishes us, and water is a form of love itself. So making sure you're drinking the clearest water for your animals too. All of this is true for your animals too. Another way to raise your vibration is pure therapeutic essential oils. This is becoming really popular now. There's different brands, and you can muscle test if you know muscle testing for the best brands for you. But if they're 100% pure therapeutic essential oils, they're going to raise your vibration when you use them appropriately. They're going to help you. Flower essences as well, all natural organic flower essences, help raise your vibration. They really help you shift vibrationally if you're feeling one kind of vibration. And then I love Star of Bethlehem is one that I love, that's made of Bach flower essences. I'll drink that if I feel a little heavy or dense. Sometimes it's just relaxes. It's great for animals too, all of those. Make sure they're 100% pure, therapeutic grade, no perfumes. Prayer, another example, raises your vibration. Yoga, and various forms of exercise, provided that the exercise is you loving your body and not like pushing yourself to some extreme that's causing pain to the body. Any form of exercise that feels good. But yoga is so wonderful, and any form of chi exercise, tai chi, any chi energy movement exercise, great for raising your vibration. Of course, earthing, grounding, which we talked about, which is walking barefoot on the earth, sitting barefoot, laying on the beach or on the grass, looking up at the sky, breathing in air from the sky, breathing in pure, high-frequency air with your intention. And finally, service. Service to others, being of service without harm or detriment to yourself, not as a martyr, but just offering gifts of service always raises your vibration. All right, let's move on. And all of this, of course, I said already, helps our animals. As we progress in raising our vibration, what we really realize is it is an act of love, that we become so aware of how loving it is to ourselves, that it's an act of falling in love with ourselves, that this is the original mission for every human being, and even Mother Earth, through this ascension process, talk about that more too, is falling in love with herself again. She is choosing to purge things that are no longer serving her, and she's re-falling in love with herself in a sense, and so are we. And that's really what raising our vibration is about, that every choice we make becomes an act of desiring to fall in love with ourselves. And as we progress, we want to learn more tools and techniques and practices to continue to assist us. We want to take more classes and workshops and 10 more seminars, and also spend more time in nature and go within more. And we want to do more deep meditation and prayer and other forms of sacred ritual that feels good and right to us, and building altars to ourselves and honoring ourselves. And yes, honoring others too, but not at our expense. Being of service to the greater good, but always understanding that self-love, self-care comes first, and then the service to the greater good or to others becomes all we want to do. That's what raising our vibration does. And we ultimately realize we're here to be of service to source, to the source within us, around us, and in everyone and everything, right? Now, as we do that, this ongoing process of raising our vibration, coming into this love, is requiring us to choose, to make choice to forgive ourselves and all others, to choose to forgive everything and everyone, because that is, forgiveness is liberation. Forgiveness is liberating ourselves from 3D. Forgiveness is liberating ourselves from pain and suffering. Forgiveness is liberation of ourselves from other experiences that no longer serve us. And yes, perhaps from other people that may have been perceived to be harmful or detrimental or challenging. Maybe they were teaching us things. Nonetheless, we choose forgiveness, we choose kindness, we choose compassion, we choose understanding, we choose authenticity, being authentic, becoming, not caring so much about how someone else might judge us just because we're living our truth, and choosing joy and behaving as peace and love and embodying truth, honor, and dignity, choosing our integrity, to act in alignment with our highest integrity, right? This is part of raising our vibration and anchoring into 5D. We must be acting in accordance with these behaviors, because they're the behaviors that govern. Maybe govern's not the right, I feel like I hear universal laws, and they exist on a 6-dimensional plane, which we'll get into, but they're correcting me. They're like, we are the ones that govern the realms, but nonetheless, these energies are the frequencies: forgiveness, compassion, understanding, etc. This is what governs us in 5D. So we must behave in accordance with these: integrity, joy, taking the high road, choosing the high road. You know, I've walked away from relationships in the past in my life, even recently, where I realized this relationship is not allowing me to be the best version of myself. And I appreciate the lessons I've learned of self-love, self-care, self-honoring, whatever was missing. But I'm going to release this relationship because it's not letting me be at my natural highest and best. And so that's taking the high road. I didn't go into argument or disagreement or debate. It was more like release. So, okay, all of these elements of raising our vibration are basically what are anchoring us into this 5th dimensional reality. So let's understand with more clarity what is 5D, if you haven't already realized. 5D is the recognition that everyone and everything is connected, and that what connects us all is energy and the vibratory state of our consciousness and of our existence, our embodiment, what vibrational frequency we're embodying and holding, and that vibrational frequency that we're embodying and holding is connecting to us, to everyone else, even though we can't necessarily see it with our eyes, because it exists beyond the 3rd dimension. So it's a non-physical frequency of energy and consciousness and vibration, the frequency of that energy. And this vibratory state of being, you know, is harmonious with these light frequencies that we've been discussing: peace, love, compassion, joy, care, etc., service. And this is a new foundation of our existence that we choose, consciously choose, to behave as and to embody ourselves as. And that we understand that this is our new foundation, that the foundation of our existence is this unity consciousness that recognizes that we're all connected, that we're all part of this divine source of this frequency of love, peace, joy, etc. And that we must embody that to anchor into 5D. That is 5D. And that the other thing that's so important about 5D, this is really huge, is that we begin operating primarily from the heart center. So in third dimensional reality, we know we're operating from left brain. I hear you guys asking about 4D, so hang in there, I'll get to it. We're operating from our left analytical brain, right? Memorizing and studying and making lists and hierarchy. But in 5D, we're operating from the heart center. In the heart center, when it's really open, it's very easy to love. It's very easy to forgive. It's also very easy. It is easy. You are more vulnerable. And it can potentially be easier to be hurt by someone who might be harmful or hurtful. But it's also easier to forgive. And it's also easier to release that person in love or that experience in love. So yes, we are more vulnerable, but it's a strength. It's a strength of our love. And we open this heart through all the ways of raising our vibration, all those things we talked about, opens the heart, breath work, etc. And we stop thinking and analyzing as much. We become more of the choice. We don't need to get into the ridiculousness of the drama or the story or the analytics. And instead, we just like to love. And I just recently led a crystal journey in Arkansas that I'll be leading again next year. It was so awesome. And one of the women on the retreat she would say over and over again, I don't care. I just want to love. And I know she really was embodying that. It was so beautiful. And she would remind me, don't get hung up in all of this analytical, because one thing I've been teaching for a long time is we're not going to be able to figure our way out of the matrix. It is not something you can figure your way out of. In fact, over figuring it just further tends to entrap us in it. So 5D, we are living from our heart center. We still use our intelligence. I wrote a presentation and we're here learning with our left brain, but we're living in the heart center. And this heart-centered approach is always more intuitively guided. We make connection in the heart center. We share energy and give love and exchange information from this extrasensory aspect of ourselves. We move beyond just those regular 5D senses and start really using the brain matter in our heart. And we shift from that left brain that knows or doesn't know or analyzes. We do work with the right brain. The right brain, this is what our animals, by the way, are so great at helping us with, because they're much more right-brained than we are in terms of the balance between left brain, right brain. So the right brain knows, it has experiences. And when we do meditation, it's so easy to access that right brain, right? The left brain's trying to figure out, I always say this, left brain's trying to figure out what the right brain already knows. So we bring both of those into more balance. We don't have to overanalyze. We can know, we use our intuition, and we connect it in with the heart that knows we are love. And what we understand in 5D, this is what's really so important about 5D, is that, and heart-centered living, is that we understand there's no more need for fear, because the very thing that protects us, so to speak, is our vibration of love and peace and joy. Because in that vibratory range, when we're embodying that so wholly and completely, living from the heart center of love, that's our ultimate protection. Because that frequency is emanating from us, within us, around us. It's vibrating from us. The only other beings really and experiences that can come interact with us must also be vibrating within that realm. This is real unity consciousness, because we understand, not only do we understand that everyone and everything's connected, we take it even further. We realize if I am the vibration of love, if I'm really embodying that with my heart center and the whole of my left brain, my right brain, I'm getting out of overanalyzing, getting more into knowing that everything's good, fine, well, breathing in and through my heart center, embodying that love, operating and behaving in ways that are in accordance with fifth dimensional energies, frequencies. Therefore, I am at that vibrational range. And because I'm in unity consciousness, knowing that we're all connected, I also know that anyone who interacts with me must be vibrationally harmonious with me for the most part. And therefore, I'm going to be safe. I'm going to be fine, because the vibrations that I interact with will also be primarily fifth dimensional frequency. And they're also all embodying those ranges. You see this? It frees us from fear, liberates us from fear. Okay, I hope this makes sense. So fifth dimensional living is unity consciousness. And generally speaking, this is what I mean when I'm referring to unity consciousness, that we all understand and embody this. Now let's talk briefly about ascension and what that is, right? Because this is very significant. Ascension is a term that's now being kind of used and thrown around a lot, and it's a great term, but it's a temporary phase. It's not, okay, let's talk, what is ascension? To me, when I'm referring to ascension, it's this process that we're going through personally, and it is happening globally, where we're leveling up. We're leveling up out of 3D and we're anchoring into 5D. And it's a phase, and yet it is temporary, and yet it's eternal because it's our experience. We're always going to be expanding and leveling up and reaching deeper levels of love and more expanded levels of consciousness, right? So, but the goal of ascension, let's understand this, is to expand consciousness. In fact, if we really understand the goal of the third dimensional reality, which is based in unconsciousness, right? In third dimensional reality, by the way, you've heard this before. I know you've heard this. People who are really in third dimensional consciousness are using 10% of their brain, 10% of their consciousness. Some people say less, especially now with GMOs and artificial sweeteners. Get rid of those. Get rid of them from your diet. And fluoride, those things dumb down the pineal gland and the pituitary gland. So many people who are still using those artificial substances and eating genetically modified foods, etc., are using even less than 10% of their brain now, 5% in some cases. They've just become so unconscious. They're operating a lot of time in fight or flight, reaction, reactivity, because they're just, they're on the roads giving middle fingers and cursing. And we're not judging that. I'm just comparison learning. The purpose of that whole experience of being unconscious is to expand consciousness. Because how could Source, who's omnipotent, omnipresent, omniconscious, omni-love, expand itself if it's omni-everything without us, aspects of its own self, being willing to go through unconsciousness, right? That's like the game of, we believe someone entrapped us, and yes, somebody did. Ourselves, as posing as reptilians, posing as draconians, posing as evil popes, or even posing as benevolent popes, posing as presidents and queens and whatever else. Secret societies, and I could go on about that stuff. But nonetheless, if we wanted to expand consciousness, we would have to make ourselves unconscious to explore areas of consciousness that we weren't conscious of. So the goal of ascension is now to expand consciousness even beyond that. Now, how do we expand into the unknown? That's what I love. Now, I love going into the unknown. That's why for me personally, I feel like my gifts and my abilities have been so dramatically expanded and increased because I love going into the unknown territories, the unknown realms, and taking what's unknown and bringing it into our reality. So nonetheless, that's the goal of ascension, expanding consciousness. And now more specifically also to alleviate suffering, of course, because in this third dimensional reality, there's a lot of suffering. There's illness, there's disease, there's death that's not by choice. There's all kinds of fear-based experiences that are generally unpleasant, and all kinds of suffering. So ascension, the process of ascension, really does alleviate suffering, not only for us personally, but as we do it, understanding from unity consciousness that even those beings in third dimensional reality who still seem to be entrapped, they're affected energetically, because all this energy is part of one source, right? Of omnipresent, omniconscious love. Omniconscious peace. So, and then of course, the third goal of ascension that's also important to say is to elevate the frequency and vibratory state for all of humanity and beyond. Yes? So as we elevate our frequency, we're up-leveling and expanding on the frequency for all of humanity and beyond. Understand this is part of the mission of the star family races, which, as we'll get into, I'm watching my time. I'm good with time still. So the star family races, they want to interact with us, but their frequency, these benevolence, is way beyond fear. They're so well anchored into love and peace for the most part, and service, that in order for us to interact with them, I think I said this earlier, but I might have detoured from it, we must elevate our frequency and our vibration to have more direct interaction. Yeah, they don't really interact with us, the benevolence, if we're fear-based. So all of this, as we elevate our frequency, they're also benefiting as well, not only from their interactions with us, but also because this is affecting our galaxy and our universe that they also exist in. Okay, couple other things about ascension important to say, and then I want to move on to fourth dimension, because I know that's the big understanding question, more clarity people want. So ascension is really deeply personal. I mean, if I try to tell you about some of the really personal experiences, like I'm living in Maui and I have all of a sudden this being that looks like Jesus, and I'm so like in my 3D consciousness at that time, I can't even believe that that could possibly be Jesus coming to me, opening this doorway that looks like a hole in my wall, but it's like emanating purple light from it. And I'm like, am I going insane? Like if I tried to tell you the depth of that experience and even what happened after that and through that, it would just be a story. I can never really give you the depth of how that changed me forever and how that affected everything I do now. Or any of the other personal experiences, like talking to my so-called dead brother, Jeff, who was my awakener, my angel who helped me awaken, or having that ET, extraterrestrial experience that I had in my induction experience. Like, it's so personal. I could never communicate how real and deep it is. And I know that each and every one of you listening has had some of the most deeply personal, transformational experiences that none of us can really understand. We can listen, we can learn, we can relate, but the depth of it, it's yours. And no one can really, and this is why we have, why we have those is because when you go through such a deeply personal experience that's so transformational, that experience is your anchor. It's your anchor point in 5D because you start to know. No one can take away your knowing. No one can tell you that you don't know what you know when the knowing is not left-brained learning, experience. And the right brain starts to experience these things, the heart opens up, now you have a whole new experience, right? But it's very deeply personal, a very deeply personal process that happens on an individual level. And every person and animals and Mother Earth and even all of nature is experiencing this. So ascension is also a global process, though, because we can see that these old 3D systems are collapsing. The school system is collapsing. It doesn't educate anymore. It took everything, all of the right brain things out of it. And they made it this linear, hierarchical, learn your math, basic math, use a calculator for anything that would challenge your brain. Learn your, they just basically dumbed down the schooling system. And of course, the whole schooling system initially was built on preparing people to work on assembly lines anyway, which we don't even do anymore. So we know the schooling system is basically collapsing, but it's being rebuilt. There are aspects of newness coming up, right? Then same thing with our healthcare system, completely collapsing. But at the same time, there's a whole new system of homeopathics and holistic medicines and healthcare healing that's happening outside of that old system. That's really, people are having miraculous healings, right? So that's part of ascension. The healthcare system is shifting. The medical institutions are shifting. People are shifting out of pharmaceutical drugs and realizing that those aren't really designed. The pharmaceutical healthcare system is based on perpetuating suffering and illness. And those of us who are waking up, we realize, right? That system is tanking. It's collapsing in on itself. And people who are still caught into it are still in the matrix. They're going to be breaking free. They will be breaking free, most of them. We can see our culture is changing, right? So our whole cultural norms are changing. Some of it is much more liberating and freeing. People are speaking their truth. People are standing up for their rights in ways that they didn't before. All kinds of things are changing culturally and societally, the way we operate and the way we do business. Old systems that are based in third dimension are collapsing. That is true. That is a natural part of this ascension process. So when you see something collapsing, or maybe your friend or best friend can't get their health care, that is hard. I am sorry, but it has to collapse. When you see, for example, massive weather storms happening, yes, there's a dark aspect of it, but there's a light aspect of it. Mother Earth cleaning up, Mother Earth recalibrating, Mother Earth elevating, cleaning old stuff out. Like Katrina is a good example. And Harvey, the two hurricanes in the United States, those were very upsetting, but they taught people to be more caring, more compassionate, care about their community. Harvey was helping. Katrina was wiping out old KKK energy, voodoo energy. Just two examples. These are environmental changes, for example, that are a result of ascension, right? So that's happening across all these systems. Obviously, financial is a major change. We're seeing the old systems of our financial systems are collapsing and have been collapsing, and then being rebuilt slowly up from the ashes. Like Bitcoin is an example. And even if that's not steady yet, electronic currencies are rising up. Other forms of trade and exchange of goods and services is rising up. We may see a return to gold and silver. That we're still creating that as a collective, but we're seeing collapse of old systems and new building of new systems. And of course, I don't need to say about the governments. They're collapsing, those systems based in 3D collapsing. This is ascension, yeah? This is the goal of ascension, or part of the process of ascension. Now, needless to say, I think I have said this, but this is happening throughout our entire galaxy and other galaxies as well. And it's throughout our entire universe, and it's happening through other dimensions, extra dimensional. So that's what we want to expand into in this conversation. So our job in order to level up and ascend is to make this shift from 3D to 5D, and to move beyond, even go beyond 5D once we're anchored in there. But really we have to vibrate in harmony, right, with 5D. And so let's talk about 4D, because we do have to pass through, so to speak, 4D. And this is the most challenging part of ascension for individuals, because the fourth dimensional realm is basically, the way I define it, some people call it time. I don't agree with that. I just agree that time exists within the fourth dimension, because fourth dimension is non-physical. It's non-physical. It's non-constructs of the mind, belief systems, belief structures, points of view, thoughts, opinions, judgments, perspectives, emotions. And understand, in 3D, we're unconscious of all of them, because what's the other 90%? If they're using 10% of their brain in 3D, I'm saying they, but people, if they're using 10% of their brain, then 90% is unconscious. That 90%, you could say it's sort of symbolic of 4D. Well, 4D is part of that. You have to explore the unconscious. And you have to move through, so to speak, these unconscious aspects of ourselves. And yes, thoughts, emotions, beliefs, judgments, opinions, constructs, concepts, viewpoints, perspectives, the concept of time. The reason time is not a dimension of itself, it's not even constant. One day you're like, wow, that day went so fast. One day you're like, wow, this dragged on forever. People are playing with the idea of expanding time, contracting time. I want to get through this really fast. I'm going to make time move fast. I want all day to enjoy my vacation or my day off. I'm going to expand time. If you're getting conscious, you're playing with that, right? Because time is a construct in 4D. By the way, there's lots of other non-physical things worthy of mentioning in 4D. Ghosts, they're real. Ghosts are beings who have crossed over and still believe or perceive themselves to have some kind of physicality. So they represent as some sort of apparition, light or shadow. They're real. They exist. They exist in 4D. They overlap with 3D because if you can open your mind to the concept that they exist, you can see them. Right? Some of them are maybe malevolent, some of them not. Maybe they have just their own intention to help people understand that there is another realm. Maybe they are not finished with their work in the physical reality or their earthly experience and they're hanging on. Lots of different reasons for ghosts. Loved ones who have crossed over often hang out in 4D. They don't usually stay there, but they definitely hang out there for a while, especially to connect with us, especially animal companions who have crossed. And yeah, loved ones who have recently crossed over, they tend to move on, 5D and beyond. They don't hang out in 4D, but it's like Grand Central Station. That's the way I think of 4D. You're sort of passing through this realm to connect. And you can move on to where your natural frequency is, right? Entities do exist in 4D, and those are typically entities are either benevolent or maybe more malevolent, but they're non-physical beings that have some kind of light energetic vibration. So they are real and they do exist, but we typically can't see them with our eyes or hear them with our ears in the third dimensional realm. We have to open up. Demonics do exist. They are real and they are malevolent beings with a malevolent intention. They really can't hurt you when you get out of the fear-based range, but you have to move through that range. You may come into contact with them and then you learn about them and you learn about liberating yourself and freeing yourself from them, or you play with them. If you want to be possessed and if you're playing with that realm of possession, even if you're unconscious about it, haven't fully cleared it out, that's in the fourth dimensional realm. Of course, inaudible sounds and frequencies and invisible light frequencies, those are all parts of 4D. And who knows what else is there? We don't know all of it. Things that are still unknown, undiscovered, 4D. And the idea is in 4D also when we're accessing and working through our psychic abilities and our own intuitive abilities, we're working with the fourth dimensional realm. Our guides and guardians, angels, masters, teachers, loved ones, they don't live in 4D, just like you wouldn't live in Grand Central Station or an airport, but they pass through and they come in there and they interact with us on that fourth dimensional plane as we up level and expand our consciousness so we can connect with them there. And, opening our awareness as we, this idea of opening your pineal gland and pituitary gland, of your third eye, that's part of expanding into 4D. Because of course, those major glands help us to do that, right? Pineal gland, pituitary gland, master glands in the body, in the higher consciousness. Okay, so most important to understand about moving through 4D and anchoring into 5D for our own selves and also for the collective is to understand that by virtue of being unconscious of something, that essentially potentially can trap us in this matrix of duality. If we're unconscious of something, if we don't know it exists, if we haven't somehow moved through it, blessed it and loved it and accepted it as part of the experience of separation, it can entangle us. It can entrap us. So that's why it's so important, really, to move through this non-physical realm. That's why it's important to face our fears. That's why it's important to be willing to be, one of the things I love about Portal to Ascension and what Neil's offering is he's offering truthers the ability to get in touch with truths that we didn't know. And some of it is scary and some of it is upsetting, to think that these so-called negative aliens are entrapping us or controlling, and that there's a patriarchy that's deliberately maybe dropping chemtrails to shut down the DNA, or fracking to upset the inner grid, the new crystalline grid. I didn't really talk about that yet, but if I can get to it, I will. You know, whatever it is, it's very upsetting. If you know that negative aliens have implanted you with a program that's making you unconscious and you become conscious, it's upsetting. But ultimately, it's liberating. The truth does set us free. And learning about these unconscious things is our liberation. And we don't have to get sucked into them, consumed by them. We don't need to be to have a demonic possession in order to know it exists and say, ah, not interested, thank you, I love you, you're part of creation, fine that you exist, all that exists is fine, but I'm moving on. You know, I don't want to take the train to the dark side of the tracks. I want to take the train to 5D and beyond, so to speak. So in any case, it's what I love about Portal to Ascension, and I love what Neil's doing, because he's helping us become conscious of this stuff. And it's helping us really to remove these kinds of constructs. So let's label what they are. Some of them are unconscious mental and emotional and physical perceived blocks. Understand they're perceived, because the truth is we are the embodiment of the divine. We are embodiment of the frequency of love, joy, peace, oneness with our source and with one another, unity consciousness. But these perceived blocks, I mean, a great way to refer to them, you've probably heard this a million times before, is it's like you're peeling the layers of the onion, or you're dropping old skins, or you're shedding an old skin. They don't feel so good because the real you is emerging, right? Caterpillar in the cocoon, butterfly emerges. All of these are the unconscious mental and emotional and physical perceived blocks, barriers, beliefs, belief systems, programs of the mind, just like a program on a computer, like a virus on a computer has to be cleaned off. Entanglements and snarlements. When we get into emotional or ego battles, or battles of egoic superiority or supremacy, that's another. Divide and conquer is a really big program. You see that going on, Republican, Democrat, white, black, men, women, one side of a football team versus the other side of a football team, United States versus Russia. This is all divide and conquer, belief systems, constructs, programs. They're in us. If you're thinking that you're a Republican and your side is right, that's divide and conquer. If you hate Trump or love Trump, it doesn't matter. It's divide and conquer. You pro this, against that. That's an unconscious construct. And it's hooked you in. It's a hook. And there's a cord of entanglement, entangle you. And there's an attachment there to your belief system, your construct, whatever it is, that becomes a limitation. You're engaged in resistance reaction. And it's entangling you in 3D. Make sense? I mean, I'm saying you, but it's all of us. So these are these constructs, and they're unconscious parts of ourselves that keep us entrapped in this third dimensional reality that's basically fear-based. And when I say fear-based, again, like even a judgment that Trump is good or bad, or, you know, whatever it is, you know, have your pick, you know. Even the belief system that aging is part of life is a belief system. If you're believing, for example, that the sun burns you, and it will, if you have that program, the sun will burn you, but that's a reptilian-based program, belief system that will materialize, can be cleared. When you get into that unconscious, you can clear that. And then the sun doesn't burn you. The sun starts lighting up your light body. Total different experience, right? Okay, so these are non-physical constructs, and they seemingly block us from that divine source that is within us and around us and in everyone. So that's why we go into this clearing process, this clearing, leveling up process, to start to identify these parts of ourselves that exist on a fourth dimensional realm, fourth dimensional plane of existence, so to speak. It's not outside of us, it's within us. And we start peeling all of this away. And what happens when they start happening, when we start doing it, we notice trigger responses. Something pisses us off, something angers us, upsets us, shocks us. We might go into a fight or flight. reactivity. We might react to something. We might get very angry or aggressive. You know, if you piss someone off in the United States about Trump and, you know, or the political system, you can really piss people off. If you tell someone 9/11 was a conspiracy, you could piss a lot of people off. They're not ready to address it. But that is a resistance, right? That's a construct of a program anchoring someone into third dimensional reality, where that would never be our side. That would be some other bad guy out there, right? So all of these things, uncontrollable anger, rage, extreme sadness, extreme depression, desire to hurt yourself, jump off a bridge, that's demonic. Schizophrenia, multiple personality disorders. These are all kinds of things that are so-called blocking us, that need to be addressed during this leveling up process. And when we have these triggers, or even just ignorance, or even extreme passivity. Who cares? Or I can't do anything about it. Oh, well, that's the system. A lot of people in 3D have that. They accept mediocrity. The mediocrity of existence in 3D. It's so mediocre, such a mediocre existence. Wake up, hamster wheel of life, become a slave, work until you're not 80 so you can retire and die, and your body's old and decrepit. All of that is a third dimensional construct. I'm not really judging it, even though it might sound like I am. I'm pointing out that we have to address all of that in our clearing and leveling up process. And I'm pointing out that as you go into these constructs, you clear away your own ignorance. You realize aging is a choice. Sunburn is a choice. You know, on and on and on. Okay, now when these things happen, though, I just want to say resistance, reaction, fight, flight, a trigger response, uncontrollable anger, rage, sadness, whatever it is, ignorance, upset, there's a trigger of some kind, and what's happening is the blockage, the construct, whatever it is coming up to be addressed and cleared and resolved. Even when people are saying, I'm trying to clear away my blocks. Well, okay, the idea that there's a block is a block itself, right? That's a construct. And it's coming up to be cleared. And it might not seem like it in the moment, but it is a very real indication that a transformation is taking place. And this is good, right? Okay. So this transformation usually requires a period of processing where we have to process it. Maybe we might need a friend to talk to in 3D. Even if they don't know that's happening, they might call their therapist or their counselor. You might call your coach or your mentor, best friend, or else you're screaming in the car, like working through it, you know, whatever it is. And that's not a bad thing either. That's a good thing. You know, it's processing rather than suppressing, denying, or repressing, which really that stuff just leads to sickness, right? Keeps you entangled in third dimension. So once this processing period, which could be a day, a week, a year, a month, I mean, it could be a long period of time. We just had a huge processing window of linear time. This eclipse season, every eclipse season is a really big window for the collective to process stuff around major themes. Once that happens, the person starts to breathe again and realize they've learned something. They've have a new perspective, a new awareness. They've leveled up that breathing. They've now ascended on some particular issues. They have released density, they've disentangled, and they're leveling up. So the processing period itself isn't always so fun, but it is an important aspect of ascension and leveling up into 5D. To be clear, I think I have just said this, but I want to say it again. Failure to adequately process means that the issue will continue to come up, whatever issue it is, over and over and over again with increasing magnitude and increasing intensity until it's completely resolved. So when you have these perpetuating themes in your life that come up over and over again, it means the processing is not done or complete or somehow has not leveled you up. And it also typically means you have not received the gifts of the expanded consciousness that are waiting for you through the processing. Failure to process will always inevitably result, if it is really left undone, in some kind of illness, sickness, suffering, unhappiness, displeasure, discontent. Animals take it on. Our animals get sick or lost. People don't realize when they lose their animals, there's something they have not worked through, and that animal is trying to somehow bring it to their attention. Okay, so don't get me started. It's very, very, very important that we're processing right now. Relationships break up. Failure to process. Divorces, health crises, disease, financial loss, poverty, lack. Someone steals from you. Your bank account goes broke. Global economic crises. We see it on the world stage if we don't process through our money and wealth issues, which, by the way, are linked into our self-love, self-value issues. We have world health crises if we don't process. Integrity issues in world governments are a result of failure to process. They're also a result of the processing, because the old system cannot survive, right? We said that. But the failures, the breakdowns, the problems are an indication of what's still left to process, what's not processed, right? At the same time, environmental crises of every imaginable kind in the world. That is a failure to process how we treat our bodies. If there's an environmental crisis, our body is a representation of the earth and the environment. The earth and the environment is a representation of our bodies and how we treat our bodies, for example. All lack, limitation, and restriction of every imaginable kind is a failure to process and align with 5D. Because in 5D, fifth dimensional reality, and beyond, all of these things are resolved. Okay, I would love to go into processing techniques, but I just want to tune in a little bit, because we can go into processing techniques, and I'm happy to do that. However, before I do that, I want to address some more of these dimensions, because sorry, bear with me for a second. I just want to look at some of the things I know we said we were going to talk about, because I'm looking at the time. So, okay, I think we talked a lot about navigating 3D and anchoring into 5D, understanding fifth dimension. Let's talk about some of the other dimensions, okay? Sixth dimensional reality is, from my perspective and everything I know, and yes, beings can pass through there, star family races, and you can hang out there. You can go to Tahiti and hang out if you want, even if it's not where you live. But sixth dimensional reality is where universal laws exist. And the universal laws are real laws, and they do govern us, whether we know it or not. They govern the lower dimensions too. However, in the lower dimension, because of unconsciousness, people believe and perceive that they're being ruled by laws that humans made. And they believe that they have to follow those laws, and that they must conform to those laws. And when you elevate into 5D, that's where you can start to become more conscious of these sixth dimensional universal laws. I'm not suggesting that you should break laws of the land, but what I am saying, absolutely. In fact, most of the time you don't even feel like you need to, because you're so aligned with these sixth dimensional laws. You're not trying to break laws of the third dimensional reality, but you understand that you can use these sixth dimensional laws to really start working with you and for the greater good of humanity. In fact, the sixth dimensional laws, we don't have time to go into all of them today, but maybe in a future call. I mean, I've taught a whole class on this. These laws, they're unbreakable, right? Unmutable. They're not like a law that you can break. And the first law is really that you exist, and you are the embodiment of creator. That's the law of one. Law of one is there's one source. You are it. You are all that is. And that source is one, love. It's love. It's consciousness. The vibration is a frequency of love. It's the source of consciousness. Omnipotence, omnipresence, omniconscious. That's the law of one. And all there is one. So we exist as aspects of that source. And so within that, underneath that law of one, there are these sort of sub-laws that are conscious of themselves that help us to be aligned with our oneness, to help us to know and find our way to alignment with this source. And I've had these laws come to me. You know, you have to have certain virtues, I think, because I've had some of the laws come to me later on after I was already working with the laws and introduce themselves. And I'd be like, how come I never knew about you? I've been teaching classes on the universal laws, and this one law of aerodynamics, was like, well, I wasn't interested in you. I didn't want to even deal with you. You hadn't developed the virtues yet to work with me, or that I would work with you. You have to have certain virtues for it. Not that, and it's not exclusionary to any of us. It's just understanding that these laws govern us, and as we work with them, we can change the world. For example, I will say this one other one that everyone gets to work with. It's sort of like so available. It's the law of intent, consent, and authority, otherwise known as the law of free will. So in 3D, people don't really know. Does this law exist? Doesn't they don't even know if it's a law. Is there free will? Isn't there free will? But when you start leveling into 5D and you realize this law is conscious of you, and you start telling this law, hey, law of free will, intent, consent, and authority, I'd like the skies in my reality to be forever clear, beautiful, clear skies. You know, I would like the complete elimination of chemtrails in my reality. That is my vote. And I realize I'm sharing this reality with other versions of source. This is my choice, my desire, and my intention. Let there be clear skies free of chemtrails. Thank you, law of intent, consent, and authority, for hearing my free will choice. Thank you for honoring it. So law then goes and takes that free will choice. And by the way, genetically modified foods, same thing. Anything you don't want, you can't be in resistance or struggle because now you're entangled. But if you're liberated and you're anchored in 5D, you're neutral, right? You're in a state of love, unity consciousness. Now you know this law, you can work with it. You start telling it what you want, lovingly, you know, benevolently. It starts honoring you. Your vote is always counted with the law of intent, consent, and authority. What power is that? Law of intent, consent, and authority. I choose, desire, and intend that all waters of this earth are clean and clear. Now, it might not happen overnight because you are sharing a collective experience with collective agreements, but your vote will always be counted. And it's not like in third dimensional reality where they rig the votes. You know, someone else is in control of the voting process down there. I didn't say it like that, but you know what I mean. Okay, so 6th dimension laws, yeah? 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th dimensional realities, 11th dimensional realities, that's where our star family races exist. And there's ascended masters there. You want to hang out with Jesus? You got to be able to reach that frequency in vibratory state and consciousness and the embodiment of your state. Angels, yeah, ascended masters. Oh, by the way, we also have Akashic records, the records of all, for those of you who like the records, I love the records. I love the Akashic records. They exist. You know, they can sort of frequent into the 4th dimensional realm, but they exist on a 6th dimensional plane. They're accessible for everyone, right? But all these other dimensions of reality, they're where our star family races typically tend to live. And it's a non-physical realm, but they mostly do have choice to embody if they want to, right? They have that ability to embody. So in order for us to interact with them, we have to be able to access those frequencies. But before we can really access those frequencies that are love-based, peace-based, joy-based, we ourselves must embody them as well. Yeah? Okay, I hope this is making sense. I'm just looking over some of the other things I know I want to cover, because we're coming to that point where we would open it for questions. Okay, I'd like to talk about the DNA briefly, because this is really important. Neil, is that you?
Hi, Lori. Neil's away. This is Branson. It looks like we just have a couple of questions, so if you want to take a little extra time, I think that'd be fine.
Okay. Well, okay, awesome. So we'll take the questions, but let me just say about the DNA. So, yeah. what I didn't say 12th dimension, right? 12th dimensional consciousness really, to me, is where you start to come into really oneness. And it's where you start really, even this is 12th and 13th dimensional consciousness. It's where you start coming into your knowing. You start existing as all things. You recognize you are all there is, and you are the lamp over there, and you can actually shift. And this is sometimes, in a sense, a form of shape shifting, right? You can shift into actually being the lamp or the table. You can shift into becoming whatever else there is, all that is, everything. And you recognize yourself as the totality. You're not just from left brain. You are all that is. You're the embodiment of all those things outside of you that you perceive to be outside of you, external to you. You know that they're not external to you. You start to recognize yourself so aligned with this source that you yourself begin to feel and sense and see the omnipotence of your own embodiment. And you're not even limited to your embodiment. You're way beyond your embodiment. You're all that is, right? And this is something very few people in physical form are really at that frequency, but I know more and more people are becoming more and more attuned and aligned with that for more and more of their existence. And, I myself, I don't live in that realm, but I've touched it. I've accessed it. I've had experiences where I've sort of witnessed in a weird way, like my whole reality not exist in nothingness, nothing. Because in a way there was nothing. There's nothing. And witnessing isn't even the right way to say it, because it's so much more than witnessing. It's total awareness, total consciousness. But that's very elusive to us right now. I do think that's in our future for humanity. And I know that a lot of us are having experiences like that, especially during days like, for example, today is a equinox day, right? So we're in a very balanced, equal day. These kinds of days are portal days where you have triple gateways, when it's like 12, 12, 12, 11, 11, 11, right? This year was 9, 9. Are we in a 9 year? No, we're in, 2018 ends in a 9. Anyway, you understand the dates are portal days. So those dates are very good for experiences like that. But the point is that that's the 12th, 13th dimensional awareness, right? Okay, and we don't have to embody that, but we do as a humanity really have to shift to 5D. And that is because 3D is crumbling. It's just not going to continue. It's falling apart. So just the DNA, and then we'll go to the questions. DNA, huge thing. I think most of you are probably very familiar with this DNA conversation now, because it's become quite popular for those of us who are ascension oriented and waking up. And I know I do star code activations, sacred key code activations, light body activations, and DNA activations. But it all started with my own DNA activations. And this is the story of my induction experience. This is like part of what we were leading in with the call about, I was basically living in Maui on my own. I did not know anyone there, and I had a divine appointment to be there. I didn't know that at the time. I sat on the back porch of my house, which was in Pukalani on a golf course, every night, and I would look up at the stars, because everything shuts down, at least back then it did, at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in Hawaii. It's the early ending of the night, and I'm a late night person. And I would look up at the stars, and I'd meditate, and I'd look at the moon, and I was just enthralled with all of that. And I knew that I had heard a lot about extraterrestrials coming to help us after 2012. This was all way before 2012. And I thought that they were going to be helping. I didn't know anything about the malevolent alien races. And I just would say, if there's anything I can do to help, I'd like to. I had no idea what I was doing. So anyway, after a long time of doing this on a regular basis, and I would meditate myself to sleep every night, and I was doing a lot of esoteric practices and chi type practices. And anyway, I saw a moving star in a circular rate one night, and I could not believe my eyes. It was at this time like 2:00 in the morning. There was no planes at that time in Maui. The airport shut down at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I don't know if it still does that, but it did then. And I had worked for a satellite company, a cable television company with satellites. I knew what satellites in the sky were. This was not that. And I just was like in awe, like I could not believe I was seeing a starship. And I was in my heart center, maybe not as open as it is now, but I did know enough from animals, through my animal communication and telepathy, how to send love. And I just sent love. And I just was like, thank you for being here. And what can I do to help? And I just did not know anything about malevolence. So I was telepathically beamed onto a ship. I know that sounds crazy. It wasn't just telepathically. It was like that thing you see in Star Trek, energetically beamed onto the ship. It was very sort of hazy, but at the same time, really clear. I was in this room. There were cameras everywhere. I had free ability to move about this ship. I didn't know really where I was, but I knew that I was definitely in this place with all these cameras, and I would walk in front of a door and the door would open, like similar to a Star Trek, if you watch that show, kind of experience. The door just opens when you stand in front of it. And I remember seeing the camera person watching everything. I remember walking down a hallway. I remember walking into like what was a stadium. And there was a woman there, and I asked her, what is this? And she said, this is where our children are. This is where all of our children are. I understood in later, not that time, that some of my DNA was harvested and that some of my eggs were harvested, or some ability, some aspect of reproducing that was harvested. And she asked me if she could keep track of me because I was one of her children. I remember at some point also that there was exchange of information, just some kind of heart-to-heart exchange of information. None of it was malevolent. None of it was forced. I did not have anything like that. And I remember afterwards being like, I want to leave. I walked in front of the door. I was immediately back in my bedroom, but I was awake. And after that, I stood there like stunned. And for a long time, not just one night, many nights, there were like downloads of a lot of sacred geometrical patterns coming, and images and flashes, and I couldn't understand any of it. It was crazy. And I would ask, I wasn't asking them, but I was just asking, what is this? Because I already knew source and angels were with me and guidance was with me, but I just didn't understand. And I would always hear, you'll know when the time comes. And lo and behold, it is true. I understand that it was the initial stages of helping people and animals to activate their DNA and to awaken to their alignment. And then as I would activate more DNA, because you understand we have 2 strands of DNA in 3D, and that's it. You're stuck with them. You're the victim of whatever's in there. And if you don't like what you got, you might slice it off, cut it off, surgically remove it, vaccinate it, whatever. We don't need to go into all that. But as you move through 4D, you start to realize you've got at least 12 strands of DNA. Actually, we have more, much more, right? Whether you perceive 144, some people go way beyond that even. But nonetheless, we know we have at least 12 strands, and beyond those 12 strands, the rest are etheric, so science can't see it under a microscope. But I understood that was part of my role, and that's part of what those downloads were, and all those patterns that were coming into my consciousness for weeks and weeks on end after that I didn't understand, was to help me activate this DNA in others. And eventually, as I activated more and more, I uncovered more codes that are even more specific. And then I uncovered like sacred key codes that are in that DNA. And more recently, it's been star codes. And these star codes are the codes of the future generations of us, the versions of us that are our star family, the star family races. And these benevolents, I mean, you guys, many of you know who they are, right? Palladians, Syrians, Arcturians, Elohim, Cassiopeans, Lyrans. You know, we can get to know them and we can ask about that and what their roles are if you want to ask. But really, they're all here helping us. And what they've given us is, well, though they are us in the future, they have given to us the very codes that they took from us, harvested from us, in a sense, of our DNA in 3D experiences where they were much more malevolent, not as benevolent. And I'm very sorry for those experiences and the people who have had those painful experiences, because not everybody had nice ones like I did. But nonetheless, I was already service oriented, right? So I was already at a frequency where I could have a more benevolent experience. Everybody can. Nonetheless, that's neither here nor there. I can't talk about someone else's experience because I haven't had it. But that was my experience. And now I really understand that that's how they've been helping us. What they took from us, they have given back to us, cultivated, and almost in a weird way, you could say almost improved, but designed to help us awaken within us. All these codes are in our DNA, and they're waiting to be activated and awakened. And as we do so, we level up, we expand, and we're able to access our connection with our own star family races and these higher dimensional planes of existence in the non-physical realm, beyond the unknown realm, that is all based in love and beyond. Okay. I realize we didn't get into all the processing, but I hope that's helpful. And I'm going to hand it over a little more here to Q&A. Yeah? Does that sound good? I guess I plug on the Q&A, or how do we do this?
Yeah, that sounds good. There is one question in the chat. If you can see it, from Dominic. I'm interested in how to use benevolent alien technology for healing and evolution. And then we can go to the Q&A.
Okay. How to use benevolent alien technology for human evolution. Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
For human evolution? Okay, good.
Yeah, for healing and evolution.
Okay, good. So benevolent alien technology, understand when we're talking about benevolent alien technology, what we're really discussing is energetic frequency and vibration that's within us. Because benevolent alien technology, there's two kinds of technology, benevolent alien technology. One is going to be physical, like free energy, right? Which we know Nikola Tesla had free energy, and he was murdered to keep that, right? That was part of entrapment and containment and separation and all of that matrix stuff. But this free energy still exists. That's a form of benevolent alien technology, in a sense. Even the internet, as we're using it benevolently, that is a form of benevolent alien technology. And for that stuff, I really can't address that, right? Because that's not my area of expertise. But what I can say is the benevolent alien technology that's within you, your energy, your frequency, your vibration, and the codes that are in you, all of you, but especially you, Dominic, I think your name said, or Dominic, I think that was your name. I apologize because I'm not seeing it. It's in your DNA. Because you're inquiring about it, that means you're meant to bring it through. So first, acknowledge that it's rightfully yours, here to share, whether it's for healing, expansion of consciousness, tools of however it will materialize in your physical world. The answers are in your DNA. And the solutions and the information, the process, it's all in you. There's no way you're not going to have it. So, and the fact that you're wanting it is because it's your calling, right? It's your mission. So the first most important step, and I don't know who you are personally, and I don't know what your own inner journey is, so please forgive me if it sounds basic, but you must activate it. You have to activate those codes in you. You have to do DNA activations. You have to do frequency attunements. A really great thing is, harmonics, right? The hertz, like all the different 546 megahertz, those Om Harmonics is a great website for that, right? Attunements to those frequencies. But you have to actively engage in activating the codes in you that are storing that up. And you probably hid that pretty well because it's really big gifts for humanity. So understand it's going to require you to be activating and up-leveling and awakening that within you. And as it is awakened within you, it will become part of everything you know. That's exactly how it happened for me too. My own unique journey of it, but your unique journey will be your unique journey. DNA activations are going to be so important for you, and sacred key code activations and star code activations, because it's in your DNA. And obviously meditating and working with crystals. If you feel called to crystals, you know, I just did a crystal journey, sacred crystal journey. This one's not one of the ones I got there, but I don't have any of them. They're in the other room. But to Arkansas, because you see the crystals in the inner earth, these crystals are storing up codes as well. And they're storing up, they're like time capsules from our star family races. And they store up information for us to access. And they have, so when you work with crystals, they will help you activate that within yourself too. And you can ask to find a right crystal for you that will help you to activate it from within you, because crystals have that ability. And you can meditate with the crystal, and just even holding it, or even if you're laying down watching TV, even if you're doing that. I mean, TV's not voodoo taboo. Just be discerning with the TV you watch, that it's just uplifting you and elevating you, right? Even if you're laying watching TV or listening to a meditation or a song and you're just holding the crystal on your chest and just tuning into it, it's a great way to help activate your inner technology, because these crystals are time capsules, especially, not all of them necessarily, but the Lemurian ones. The Lemurian one, these are great examples of Lemurian crystals. They come from the inner earth in Arkansas, and they have keys, and they will help you with that. Great way to meditate. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that answers your question, Damien, and it's within you. That's the good news. No one can take it from you. Even if they took your DNA at some point, that's what all that DNA ancestry is, by the way. Someone wants your DNA because the gifts are in there. All right, I hope that's helpful. So, I see these questions. Can I just answer them on the plugin?
You can answer them by voice, and then you can just type your answer. Click type answer, and that will get rid of the question. Or you can just go down the list and not worry about it.
Yeah, I'm just going to go down the list.
Yeah.
So Stefan, and I'll only use your first name for your own, privacy, honoring whatever privacy. But how to process depression. So understand, depression is the gift of your consciousness telling you are off, so-called off your path, or you're going the wrong way, so to speak. Or what happens with depression is the high self, source self, inner self, however you want to refer to that, the God self, source self, is love, happiness, joy. And that frequency remains its frequency. And the ego personality self that's based in third dimensional consciousness is doing all of its ego things, wanting ego things, right? We're not judging the ego. We need the ego to survive. We keep the ego. We keep the body. Ascending does not mean dropping the body. We get to keep our bodies. If I didn't make that clear, 5D, we get to keep our bodies, and we can access those other planes without dropping our bodies. In fact, our bodies become healthier and stronger. But depression is that the egoic identity personality self has been participating in activities, thoughts, feeling, emotions, experiences that are of so much density that it's fractaling, in a sense, never really fractal, from the light, the love, the source. So depression is, I'm so far away from my light, right? I don't know if you can see my arm, that my light has left me. My joy has left me. It has not left you. It's just trying to get you to go in a different direction, saying, I'm going here. Ego's going there. ego's off track. And the depression is simply this light saying you've moved too far away. This love, this joy, you've moved too far away from me. And I need to call you home. And the only way I know to help you wake up on this particular thing is to show you how unhappy you are without me. So the gift of depression is that it's trying to bring you home to love and joy. Now, here's the answer to depression. The answer to depression is that you're in a healing crisis that is asking, imploring, begging you to choose happiness. And when you're depressed, you don't know what that is. So I remember when I came home from Maui and my dog Kenya had died and I lost everything, and I had not really, built my new foundation of love and joy, even though I was existing there. My human self was so depressed. I had no life. I lost everything. I lost my dog. I didn't want to go on. I remember every day for a long time praying, please just help me be happy again. Please help me be happy again. And if that's where it starts with a prayer, pray, because your higher self is trying to help you be happy again. But that's one way, one thing to start with. The other thing is everything we talked about raising your vibration. That's the calling. Get massages, meditate, sit on the earth, let the sun heal you, breathe in love, whatever it is, right? Go back to that list. Essential oils, all the citrus oils are designed to make you happier. Orange, grapefruit, the citrus oils elevate happiness. Flower essences, there's some flower essences that are great. But understand, your job with depression is to ask one question over and over and over again. And this is it. And this is good for everybody. You take a breath, you close your eyes, just a breath, and you say, what is it that I need to do right now that will make me happy? Right now, that will really help me be more happy or joyful. But if you're depressed, joyful is a big stretch. What one thing can I do right now that will make me be and feel more happy? Every question has to be that. And if you are entangled in a job or something that's not working for you, what one thing can I do that will help me to realign with something better? And you have to actually do it. You have to actually do it. So if your happiness is, I'm going to go for a swim, I'm going to go walk on the beach, I'm going to call a friend, I'm going to watch my favorite movie, that's okay. Just don't let that become all you do. I'm going to go for a walk, walking, exercise, all of those things that raise your vibration, engaging in them. But the constant question has to be, what one thing must I do right now to make me happy? And you have to live your life by following whatever that one thing is until you eventually realize you're happy. You're no longer depressed. And I may be oversimplifying it, but if you combine that with the activities designed to raise your vibration we went over, you will find that really helping you a lot. And understand that you're meant to realign with your happiness and your joy. That's the purpose of depression. I hope that helps. There's a wonderful product that you can find called Size Stable. It's all natural. Helps alleviate depression. You can also use St. John's wort, but only usually that's a short-term product. St. John's wort, you can research that a little. Short-term only because after a while it sort of it's not as strong. There's one other product that's a little more chemically based, and I'm trying to recall it, and I don't know if I will be able to in the moment, but if I can, I will. It's not coming to me in the moment, but if it does, I'll say it out. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Okay, Stefan, I'll address your second part of your vibration too. Your question of how does sex affect your vibration or the lack thereof? Yeah, well, sex drive, lower sex drive is a blocking, right? These are your energy centers. People refer to them as chakras. I'm not a big chakra fan anymore. In 5D, you don't need chakras. In 5D, you just need your pranic tube opened. The whole tube, you blow it all out. Divine love flowing through it. You become the tube. in the middle of a tube torus, if you know what a tube torus is, right? You're just breathing love in and around you, like you're a donut of love. That's what the tube torus is. It looks like a donut, and you're the tube in the middle of it, right, of love. But look, low sex drive means your energy centers, which you could refer to as, right, all these energy centers, there's a block, and the blockage is disconnecting you from your vital sexual energy, which is stored at the base of the spine, which is also known as Kundalini. So these energy centers need to be opened. And all of the tools that we discussed on raising your vibration will help you with that. Meditation, energy clearing, especially. Okay, I hope that helps. Because when you're open here, your sex drive will be restored. I promise you. It's just the depression, all those blockages you're feeling blocked here. It's not open. It's blocked. Yeah. But sex is a very true sex. Understand how does sex affect your vibration. Kundalini, life force, sacred sex, which is the divine energy in you, which tantrikas in tantric circles, white tantra, designed to open your energy. That's going to help you access that more too. Just make sure it's white tantra, because otherwise you get into like red and black tantra and you're talking about like, I don't know, sometimes it's just all about the sex and it's not really that divine purity. I hope this is making sense. Anyway, that when you're working with that, it's your body is open. Everything is beautiful, sacred, sensual, sexual. There's nothing, it's all liberating and freeing. Like humanity, this is a reptilian program that has been implanted with something called sexual misery programs. These are what create sexual misery. They also create gender confusion, which we're seeing massive amounts of gender confusion on planet Earth right now, and sexual misery programs and pornography addiction and inappropriate sexual behavior. You see it even on the Bachelor, like, you know, someone for 2 seconds and they're making out. It's like, did these people even know if they like each other? It's like, okay, we've just said hello, let's make out. That's all sexual misery programs happening on an unconscious level. And that's part of what gets blocked or interacted with, depending. But if it's a lack of sexual desire, it's because there's blocks that need to be cleared, right? All right, I hope I addressed that, Stefan. Hope that's helpful. Linda's asking, can you briefly mention animal contracts? Was mentioned in the webinar description. Yes. So animals are here to help us to awaken. All animals and all animal species have different contracts depending on their species, their group. So, but they're all here helping us, and they're more right-brained than we are, and they are more heart-centered than we are. So they know a lot that we don't know, that we're trying to figure out. And because their heart centers are so open, this is why when you have an animal companion, you know, they just love. They don't have to forgive you. You could kick the dog and 2 minutes later he's loving you and kissing you because they're love. They don't even have to learn the lesson of forgiveness. Nonetheless, okay, so when we have animals in our family, animal companions, those animals are acting as teachers, guides, and healers. So they feel the energy, I said this earlier, in our environment, in their environment, and they typically take it on to mirror it and display it for their human to see. Here's what's going on with you. My illness is your illness. I know that's not so nice to hear, but that's their way of showing us what's going on in our life that we're not seeing. They know our secrets, you know? That's a companion animal, and it doesn't matter what their species is. They all do it. The more we interact with them, cats and dogs, for example, bunny rabbits, you know, the ones we cuddle with the most, we see it more in them. But it's true, birds, even the reptiles do it. Not as much the reptiles, but they do it. I mean, it's all because it's just laws of energy. You're vibrating something out from who you are, and the environment around you feels it and experiences it, right? And then radiates it back to you. Those are universal laws. Law of vibration, law of radiation, law of attraction, law of circulation. Circulates around Others around you feel it, and then you attract it back to you. Law of oneness, you are the creator. You are the one creating it all. These are laws operating, and the animals are aligned with the laws so fully and completely that they demonstrate it for us in order to teach us and to help us learn and to help us heal. So those are the animals in our family, right? Animals that are not in our family or in our home have different roles. Whales and dolphins, very famous for being healers of the oceans and the waters, raising the vibration of all the waters and all the oceans. Whales and dolphins are also Akashic record keepers. Their brains have much more consciousness than 90%. I mean, they're somewhere around 90% of their brains are conscious. So they store up the records of the waters. And if we learn animal communication, we can communicate with whales and dolphins and find out about information about the waters, because the animals will never lie to us. In 3D, we get lied to. We're told false stories, false storylines. We've got fake news. We don't know what's real, what's not. In 5D, we are discerning. We know the truths. We're able to connect with higher consciousness beings like whales and dolphins or other animals who have records. Whales and dolphins are also from, if we're talking about planets, Sirius B, which is a star system of Sirius, right? The Sirians are brothers and sisters in our galaxy. And they sent a lot of beings. I say my dog Kiko her name is Kiko. I never even put this together until 2 days ago. One of my clients said it. She said, did it ever occur to you that your dog's name is Kiko and you activate key codes? And I have been saying for years that, not years, maybe a couple of years, that Kiko is from Sirius B. Like, how did I not get that? She's a Sirius B dog, the dog star, who decided to come here and have a human experience. And because I always thought she was like such a weird dog. Like, I never got it. You know, weird's that word we use to describe what we can't describe. Anyway, all right, so I get off on a tangent there, but the animals hold records, right? I'll say one last thing about animals to address this, and that's that, like, for example, elephants, they hold the records of the earth. All the pachyderms with the big brains, elephants especially, they hold records of the earth. They also are holding a lot of the energies of the divine feminine for humans to access. Yeah, I mean, I could go on because all the different species, but I know that Neil and I are going to do another call on animal communication, and we're going to get into that in a much deeper way. So I hope that at least helps a little bit to understand more about animals and their roles with us, right? All animals have a sacred mission to help humanity, and each of them have different subgroups of what they're here to help us with. Okay, I'm going to go to the next question, unless Linda asked. Oh, I read Linda's. Anita asks, I'd like to know more details about the benevolent races. Okay, well, I think we touched on, I mean, the closest star families that we have geographically, like in terms of our galaxy, are Palladians and Sirians. And the Palladians are typically what we know about them, and it's actually really easy to interact with Palladians. They're very, I mean, they come into all my channeling sessions, and they're very closely connected to us. And they're really about love and compassion, but they're also a very mixed race like we are. So there's a lot of variety, and not necessarily all of them are always the highest love and light. In fact, most of these star races in my channeling sessions, where they come in and they connect with us, especially during like our activations and things, they come in and they tell us how much they're learning from us. It's not like they necessarily know more. They operate differently. But Palladians tend to be very diverse as well. They're often known as blonde hair, big blue eyes, but not always is the case, because they are more hybridized than the other races. This is my understanding through my connection. And again, I'm not on Pallades physically with my home. I mean, some aspect of my consciousness can easily visit there, go there, interact with them. and I know it's in my DNA, and I know there's an aspect of me as Palladian that I very closely connect with. So that's the perspective I'm sharing with, but we're all waking up to this. So, but Palladians tend to be fair colored hair, big eyes, and also very heart-centered, but also very diverse, just like we are a diverse planet. Not as diverse as we are. They're still Palladians, but we're humans, right? We're humans. Okay. Then you have Syrians. They are our next closest. And Syrians are very interested in sacred geometry. Syrians are well known for being involved with the pyramids. They're very high level, intelligent learning, but also very integrated with their heart center, very loving, really interested in service to humanity. Sirius A is, from what I know, more humanoid. Sirius B is a little more animal, like, even though they're both of the same star family. For example, many whales and dolphins come from Sirius B. In fact, I'm being corrected. The whales and dolphins come from Sirius B. All. And Sirius B is also known as a dog star. So the dog canines often, I'm hearing absolutely. This is absolutely, in a way, new for me, that dogs come from Sirius B. Okay. So those are our closest ones. Now, I could spend a whole lot more time on this, but what they're really doing as a collective, just listening if I should go into this a little more. I mean, I could spend more time on it. It's a much bigger conversation. Helpful to know Octurians and also the Octurian command, which are really kind of like our universal it's also referred to sometimes as galactic command. That they're like, if you think about United Nations, the Arcturians serve as neutral forces who hold the agreements of all galactic nations and have held balance in the sense of whatever galactic nations agree to. Arcturian forces can easily be called upon at any time, the Arcturian command, for balance and stability, or for honoring some agreement that you have, or asking for intervention. If you feel like I don't want to open up a whole Pandora's box on this, but let's say you feel like some reptilian or draconian is controlling you or something, or you feel like something's being forced or coerced on you, or maybe you've got some MK Ultra programming, if you know what that is, or you've been somehow negatively affected and you feel like it's an alien ET malevolence of some kind. Arcturian command is a very good, you can call upon Arcturian command just by calling on them and say, come in and honor my free will choice, free me and liberate me, help me free, I'm sovereign. You claim your sovereignty, right? I'm sovereign being. So that's Arcturians. I'm going to leave it at that because it's a lot more. We could go on discussing this, who they all are, but the overall understanding is that they're here helping us to awaken, and we can interact with them directly, as I said earlier, when we vibrate in harmony with them. But first, it's about anchoring into 5D. And of course, the codes that they've provided to us, I talked about that, are within us. They are codes in our DNA waiting to be activated so that we can more fully know ourselves as them. Yeah? All right, I know there's a lot more on that, but hopefully that helps. Okay, Andara. Nicola's asking about Antara. Yes, I am familiar with Antara. And Antara is it's not my area of expertise, and I've not tapped into it enough. But what I do understand is that Antara is a benevolent galactic race that has familial connections with Earth and humanity, I'm listening a little as I say it. And that Antara is also an originating planet for many star seeds, that many star seeds who are seated here. We use that terminology because we know we are embodiment of our star family, embodied here. That many star seeds are from Antara, and that Antara is interested in orchestrating the ascension of humanity, and that they're a benevolent race, and that many of them are seated here. And it's believed that some of them live in the inner earth, and that may or may not be true. I'm asking a little more about that. Because the whole inner earth, beings in the inner earth is another conversation. It's almost like a separate conversation, but there's a lot of discussion about that. Okay, I hope that's helpful, Nikki. Okay, and Susan's asking the Divine Sophia and Sophia codes. Okay, so the Divine Sophia and the Sophia codes are the divine feminine, right? The embodiment of goddess, the feminine energy. Understand this from my perspective, and what I share is that masculine energy, we all have masculine and feminine. If you're on this call, you already know that, right? No matter what embodiment we're in. But the masculine energy is the energy of force, creation, activity, movement. So when we have been existing in a third dimensional reality, that patriarchy that's been governing us, so to speak, whether it's reptilian or just governmental or whatever, is it dominated by masculine energy. And that's why human beings became doers, do. It's a slave race mentality. Reptilian forces, draconian forces, it's a slave race mentality. Do. Just become humans doing. But that is masculine energy. It's the force of creation. And feminine energy is being. All that is. And Sophia, the divine Sophia, is the divine feminine energy. It is the divine feminine consciousness, the aspect of God, goddess, divine source, being, the being, just all that is, the isness of all that is. There's no force, there's no creation aspect necessarily. It's the feminine. Now, you always know when you're around that feminine energy because it's not interfering, it just is. It feels sacredly, beautifully, wonderfully, divinely feminine. And the two need each other, right? Yin, yang. A force of creation needs feminine being, existence to create within. All existence is feminine. And so force of creation cannot create in the absence of something to create within. All that is. That is the divine Sophia. And the Sophia codes are the codes in our DNA that really awaken our ability to be. And you know when you're around someone who's off balance because their everyday state of existence when you're around them is this. I gotta go. You're talking to them. Check myself. Turn on TV. Like I'm exaggerating it because I'm a drama queen, but really that's what it is. You're around that high strung, and you're like, whoa, take it down a notch, right? But you realize you can't even say that to them because they can't receive that. And even if you did, you might initiate some kind of fight, flight, trigger response in them that's maybe aggressive. Sophia codes, when they're awakened, that's just, there is a kind of like a surrendering. And it's divine goddess. It's all the virtues of goddess energy, way beyond even what we can fathom, because it's so much of the aspect of our beingness, the completion of our beingness that we're all looking for. It's where the search ends, because the search for who we are that we think is missing exists within those divine goddess codes that are in our DNA and are waiting to be activated. And they do exist within and around us because they've always been here, just like all of everything else, but we're attuning to it. Okay, I hope that is helpful. All right, I think I've addressed all the, oh my God, there's a lot in the chat room. I hope this is helpful. How are we doing here? Should I, where do I think we're just about done, yeah?
Yeah, we don't have any more questions in the Q&A. Oh, you answered the one on the Divine Sophia, and but I have one more question. Maybe you can speak on. So there are a lot of individuals that either speak specifically about hostile ETs or benevolent ETs. Is people that feel that they're just benevolent ETs, some feel that it's just hostile. Can you speak on that and why they're even having that notion at all?
Yeah. Okay, hostile ETs do exist. In my personal experience, hostile ETs are some of the ones I've mentioned today, like reptilians, draconians, greys, mantids. Those are the ones that I know of. I don't interact with them personally in my own personal experience anymore. Let me talk about this a little bit. Hostile ETs controlled the third dimensional matrix, and it's everything we talked about. These hostile ETs are being evacuated from planet Earth. They cannot exist anymore in the frequency that Earth is elevating to. And a really good example of this is Schumann's resonance. Schumann's resonance, which if you're familiar with that, Schumann resonance was named after a scientist, Winfried Schumann, who learned how to measure the frequency of the Earth, and he was in the early 1900s measuring the vibratory rate or frequency of the Earth. And when he first started measuring it, it was like in the 1900s, it was a single digit, like 7.5 or something. This is in Wikipedia. And this scientist, who's no longer physically alive, continued to measure it. Now they still measure it, and now the vibratory rate of our Earth is somewhere beyond 33. And even higher in some places on the Earth where like monks are meditating all day long, or pure nature where no humans are, it's supposedly in the hundreds. So it's not always the same all over the Earth. But these reptilian forces, draconian forces, malevolent ETs, who have a negative alien agenda, who are extremely dark, very, very dark, have been controlling this realm and the third dimensional realm for 26,000 years is what I know. And basically the birth of this phase of humanity. These malevolents are primarily being evacuated. Now here's the caveat. And they're leaving through Antarctica. What do you think is going on in Antarctica? It's a portal. That's why no one's allowed, basically it's a quarantined section for them to leave. And this is the whole thing behind the Mars project that I'm going to really go out on a limb here, but who's the guy who's heading up the Mars project? When I look at him, all I can see is the tongue. Elon Musk. I'm sorry. This is my personal opinion, but it's also my psychic opinion. So I cannot say it's fact. In my opinion, my psychic opinion is fact. I'm laughing at myself. But, that's like a plan to hijack people and recolonize on Mars, because that's where the reptilian forces are basically recolonizing, because they cannot live at this vibratory state where humanity is elevating to. This frequency that Earth is elevating, this resonance, right, that's measured in Schumann's resonance, it's becoming too high. It's not sustainable for life for them. Now, here's the caveat that I was going to say. If a human being is not done working through their issues with these malevolent forces, the storyline will be perpetuated in their timeline. I didn't talk about timelines. So their timeline of reality can perpetuate the experience, and they can continue to have that experience and get entangled in an experience with these malevolents. And I know there are some people who are telling the story about these malevolents not from a historical point of view. And that is my personal objection, because it's history. And they are perpetuating the story, still with service to source perspective, and I honor that, but it is a story of history as far as I'm concerned. They are being evacuated. They are not able to perpetuate at the frequency that we're all moving to. Mother Earth Gaia has made her choice. Humanity is shifting into love, 5D. And these storylines of these malevolents, the malevolents are being basically evacuated or moving to Mars, recolonizing, or other planetary systems. Some of them who have no physical embodiment, entities and demonics, are being returned to source as we learn to work with the laws, the universal laws. But if a human being is not done with their story, they can perpetuate it. And there's a timeline where they can keep playing with it. That timeline exists. And if that's their sovereign free will choice, even if it's an unconscious choice, so be it. They get to have that experience. So I hope that makes that clear. That is a big hook. And I think that's one of the challenges of this whole alien ET thing, is that if you don't understand that there are benevolents out there, some of whom we've talked about, you know, that's another storyline. I'd rather play with the benevolence. I'd rather play with the light. I'd rather play with unknown. That's going to be opening up all new experiences that are much more pleasurable and enjoyable. But I understand that they're not interested in playing with the dark. They're not interested in playing with shadow. So if we're still busy engaging, you know, on these lower, heavier, denser realms, shadow, fear-based entities and ETs, you can have that choice. You can perpetuate it, but that's not how we're going to be playing with these more benevolent star family races. Okay, did I answer that? How does that, does that make sense, Neil?
Yeah, it definitely does. Thank you so much. Okay, so we are closing out now. Do you want to provide anybody with some more information about, you know, how we can find you and how people can get in contact with you?
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say I love doing activations, star seed, star code activation, sacred key code, DNA, the whole thing. I do those pretty much quarterly or as I'm guided, sometimes a little more often. And you can learn about that over at my website, which is LoriSpagna.com. And to find out about them, of course, you need to be in my community because I just announce them through the newsletter when we're doing them. I also do lots of classes, you know, like I have a great class on exiting the matrix, which goes into this in a lot more depth and we go into all the star families. And I have a great class on dark arts training and psychic self-development, tons of stuff on animal communication. I mean, all that stuff is in the courses. And there's lots of free gifts too. There's a really great free gift on awakening your DNA, you know, the dormant DNA, where we go into that. There's a free class on knowing if you're a light worker, star seed, and what all that terminology is. There's tons of free classes, really great free stuff on working with animals, energy healing, animal communication, telepathy, all of that. It's all at LoriSpagna.com. You kind of have to scroll down a little to opt in for all the free gifts. But if you just want the generic free gifts, which is like a free class on developing your psychic gifts, a free class on animal communication and telepathy, and a free Juicy Living ebook, you can go to LoriSpagna.com/free gifts. And I'll just spell my name. It's LoriSpagna. So LoriSpagna.com. Yeah.
Awesome, Lori. Thank you so much. And I gotta say, like, ever since I don't know who reached out to who first, but I know that I found your video before we spoke, and the radiance you had and the information, like, it's not easy for me to watch somebody communicate with animals and just resonated with it immediately. You know, and the way you did it, and like your how genuine you are, and I could just see that this was real from the beginning. So I'm extremely excited to be working with you, and you have such a wide range of information that we're going to have a lifelong, you know, relationship, putting out a lot of this awareness on this platform.
I'm so excited, and I also want to send that back to you. I will say, I didn't say this, but the YouTube channel has tons of really rich content and channeled information, like the stuff that comes through. I'm just like, sometimes when I watch it back, I'm like, it's like a circus act. Someone's coming in here, there's things going on here. I don't know, but it's so awesome. So I would invite people to go over to the YouTube channel. But what I want to say to you, Neil, is I am in awe of you. I think what you're doing is so phenomenal. I feel like your service and the way you're making the platform is serving not only just people who are learning and wanting to, you know, expand at such a reasonable, fair energy exchange, but just the way you're making available for people like us, you know, the speakers and the teachers and the healers who really want to share this stuff with the platform. So I'm just so grateful to you, and I'm grateful to be part of the community, and I thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Lori. I really appreciate that. Okay, love you very much. Thank you for your time today, and we'll see you later.
Okay, bye-bye, you guys. Lots of love.